Content warnings for this week's movie and discussion thereof include sexual assault and rape.
You're having that dream again. We are the emissaries from the void.
Welcome back to Emissaries from the Void. I am Tristan, and with me is...
Ari!
Yay!
I'm very excited to be here today.
So we've got a sharp left turn from the land of Little Man.
Indeed. You know, if you were expecting tonal consistency from this podcast, I have something to sell you, but it's going to change what I'm going to sell you every day. Because, this bit's stupid. Cut that. This bit's fucking stupid.
You had me and you lost me. Inland Empire.
Oh.
David Lynch's
2006. Inland Empire is an experimental psychological thriller film written, and all the credits to David Lynch. He did all the things, as is always. Its tagline was "A Woman in Trouble," and it allegedly follows a Hollywood actress through a very strange experience. It's like a dream within a dream kind of thing, because we start off with a vinyl record announcing it's the longest running radio play ever or whatever.
Yeah.
And then we cut from that to the Lost Girl as her character name. She doesn't get a normal name.
Right.
Selling her body to someone in a hotel room. And then we see her crying afterwards. And then her watching the static on the TV turns into other things. And throughout the course of the movie, we cut between these other things that are all set up in this initial viewing.
Basically.
One of those things starts centering on an older lady, but that leads directly into the introduction of Nikki. And when we peer at that perspective, it is her.
Yes.
Most of the time. We don't see the old lady again until the end.
Right. So we're, by and large, following Nikki, played by Laura Dern.
Yes.
Who is also playing other roles. I think she goes by Sue in that script.
That's the character's name. Yeah, exactly. So Nikki is an actress who is playing a role of a character named Sue. And then the lines of reality get very muddled. Yes. And even from the jump, the lines of reality are muddled because we're ostensibly watching something that's happening on the TV in this Lost Girl's bedroom, and who may or may not be the product of this radio play that we may or may not be listening to.
Right. Layers of artifice.
Layers of artifice. Exactly. There's a running theme through our podcast at this point. At least 4 of these movies have had false fronts or artifice as a theme. I mean, actually, all of them have.
Yeah.
Yeah. Interesting. Must be a feature of the void.
Yeah.
Overall, the movie just follows Nikki for most of the runtime, kind of losing her mind.
Yeah. And that's like the plot that is easiest to grab onto. I'm not surprised it's what they kind of like pitched the movie as.
It's what you pitched the movie as to me.
True.
So we're in an Uno reverse card again, because the first 3 movies that we did for this podcast were ones I had seen and introduced Tristan to. And now this is the second film that Tristan had already seen and introduced me to. Now, I'm a big fan of Lynch. I respect his work. I just haven't seen all of his movies.
Yeah.
So I was prepared mentally for what we were going to receive.
Right.
But when you told me about this movie, I was expecting that to be the movie, and then this is a 3-hour long movie, and after the first hour, it is abandoned the Nikki plot for the most part.
Yeah.
Like the Nikki Sue thing. Like they're using her as a vessel for the oddity of the experience, but not necessarily for anything else.
Yeah. The structure of the film within a film kind of dissolves at a certain point. It comes back, but it's definitely not like the whole movie.
Right. Everything that happens in this movie is relevant. Everything comes back around. Everything comes full circle.
Yeah.
So, what the fuck was this movie about?
What the fuck wasn't this movie about? Mind blown. No.
I mean, it was about a lot of things.
It is, but I think it's primarily about women and their role in society. The tagline is "A woman in trouble," but it's kind of all women are in trouble, like most of the time in society, and particularly in Hollywood, which has been a theme in like Mulholland Drive. In this particular movie, we stretch as far as Poland, I guess.
There's a lot of Polish culture just in this movie. Like a lot of people speak Polish, a lot of...
Yeah, and it's like part of it is ostensibly based around Polish folklore, I guess. We also stretch back in time to, it's not entirely clear, but maybe the 30s, 40s.
Based on the cars,
right.
40s probably.
So this is like kind of an epic, even though it's not structured like an epic necessarily.
Yeah, I'll agree with you. Because, like, I mean, when we were having our little post-mortem after watching it, I remember kind of talking a lot about the feminist perspective that this movie has. Like, it's... So, I would agree with you. I think we're aligned on what we think this movie was about, because it definitely is about women being in trouble. So, spoiler synopsis. If you haven't seen this movie, more so than normal, pause, go watch this movie.
Pause it even harder than you usually would.
Well, you know, so like for Little Man, like who gives a fuck? Like,
right.
Whatever.
Yeah, no.
But for this movie, I think that the experience of watching it blind, very important. And also, like, if you are femme and watch this movie, I feel like you're going to have a radically different experience than if you are mask and watch this movie.
Yeah.
So I would say watch it with a mixed audience. Get your gal pals and your guy pals together and watch it together, because it's going to be good discussion.
I'm assuming in post we're going to put in the content warnings at the beginning, but definitely pay attention to those.
The content warning at the beginning of this podcast is not a joke. When we put it at the last podcast, even though we made a lot of jokes, it was not a joke.
Yeah. And like, I could see it going either way, whether someone is, how do I want to say this, like less receptive to it when it's a joke, like in Little Man, or when it's fucking real. Like,
this movie takes itself very seriously.
Yeah. There are like maybe flashes of humor in there, but it's like,
yeah,
it's heavy. It's heavy shit.
Yeah, it is. It's very heavy. Like, honestly, one of those movies I had to process, you know, because we watch these movies a couple of days before we record, specifically to give us processing time so that we can then have our thoughts together for when we actually record. And usually I don't need that time, but I needed it this time because I really thought a lot about it. So, spoiler warning. Effectively, this film is broken into 3 layers, in my opinion. This is part of the synopsis, but like it's very open to interpretation. But the film is broken into 3 layers. You have the Lost Girl's perspective.
Right.
You have Nikki and the old Polish woman's perspective. And then you have the perspective within that perspective of just Nikki. So how this film starts is we start with the Lost Girl. We start with the audio play stuff, and we'll get into that. But that stuff is extra. the main meat of this is we start with the lost girl. She has just sold her body to someone in a hotel room, and she is watching TV and crying. And now, when I was originally watching this, before I read anything about it, I interpreted that she was literally watching the static and making all of this up. Like she was projecting some kind of fantasy onto the static.
Because it's static and then the picture kind of comes through.
Right, exactly. But supposedly, according to the official synopsis that I was reading, she's channel surfing. So whatever.
Official as in David Lynch himself wrote it, or
like the one that I could find on everything. Like if I read any of these synopses, it says the word channel surfing.
Because like I feel like there's exactly two levels of credibility. Either it came from David Lynch's mouth,
or it didn't.
Or
He didn't say anything about that. But like, so everybody that has synopsis this movie that I have looked at says channel surfing.
Okay,
I interpreted it as she's hallucinating, but whatever. Point is, we then get this rabbits sitcom, alleged sitcom,
right?
And that shows up a lot. Apparently, it's directly a reference to shorts that Lynch had done. He did like 8 episodes of it.
Yeah, you can watch them on YouTube.
Mm-hmm. And but they do play a role in this movie. They're not just there.
Right.
They interact with the characters. But effectively, like there's like the dialogue that these rabbits have is soulless. If it had been made today, I would say that it was made by AI. And then the laugh tracks don't make sense.
Yeah.
So the idea is like you're watching something, the characters are talking, the laugh track goes off. It's like, laugh. This is a joke. This is funny. It's almost like,
yeah.
And then like
it's something like the ironing is done.
Yeah. Or like, I have a secret.
Yeah.
And then like
it's all just really esoteric and
the void.
Very voidy.
I would say that the rabbit shorts, like if you wanted an idea of like what pure distilled void is, the rabbit shorts are like that. Like this is the kind of thing that you would watch on like Adult Swim at 2 a.m. when you're like 10, and it would live with you for the rest of your goddamn life. Anyway, point is, you can already see the feminist critique forming because the man comes home from work. The man rabbit comes home from work. The woman rabbit is sitting there doing all of these chores while the man just kind of sits there on the couch, and it's already very like 1950s domesticity.
Right.
We see the rabbit walk out of their apartment, walk into some really opulent room in a mansion, watch an interaction between two characters we do not know yet, but we will. I don't really retain much of what they said. And then it all fades away. That's when the lost girl starts crying. We then pan to a different show, and it's an old Polish lady walking up to a mansion, inviting herself in, and then Nikki, being a good host, is like, okay, well, yeah, hi. She's like, I'm just meeting everyone in the neighborhood. I just moved on.
Yeah.
And then she just talks a bunch of gibberish, but that gibberish comes up in the whole movie. Everything she says is said by other characters.
Right.
And she tells a fable. And I feel like this fable is key to understanding the whole movie.
Yes.
She says that, there's an old Polish fable about a boy who went outside to play, and he walked through a doorway, and from that was birthed evil that followed him for the rest of his life. And then she's like, then there's a variation on this. And that variation is, then a girl went out to play in the marketplace, half born. She strayed into the alleyway. And she doesn't finish telling that, but the implication is that a girl who strayed from the marketplace is where evil was birthed from.
Yeah.
And then I feel like after that, we are then in her fable that she is telling to Nikki for the rest of the movie.
There does seem to be textual evidence of that. Yes.
Yes. The rest of it, as we said earlier, allegedly Nikki gets a part in a movie called All Blue Tomorrows. And the like she gets the part she's with this other lead. This other lead has a reputation for seducing his co-stars, and all this stuff. And then the like breakdown of reality happens. That's where like it starts to get weird.
Yeah, the plot of the movie starts to kind of mirror their lives because their characters are having an affair, and they start having an affair as co-workers. And
she starts saying that she is Sue.
Yeah. She starts to lose track of whether she's herself or her character.
Mm-hmm. Without getting into the weeds too much, this all culminates in her kind of like breaking the chronology of her life and experiencing things out of order and experiencing things with other people who are also out of context, and like we see them in later contexts. And then all of this culminates in running through this building complex, eventually meeting the lost girl, kissing her, and then the lost girl is freed and runs away and returns to her family.
Yeah.
Like if you want just like the plot of this movie.
Right. That's
basically the plot.
Yeah. How you can distill it. Yeah. Yeah, that works. So where do we want to start?
Let us start with the very beginning. The audio play.
Axon N.
The longest running radio play in history. They say that we start our broadcast with a gray winter day in an old hotel. And throughout the entire movie, Axon N keeps showing up.
Yeah. The letters AXXONN. They're like written as graffiti in a few places.
And or like the actual like designation on a door later. Not even graffiti. Like they look like the door doesn't have numbers on it. It has Axon N on it.
Yeah.
And so in some way and so we start the movie with a film projector turning on and casting light on Inland Empire.
And then a spinning record with a dusty needle.
Very dusty. It's got that like sizzle to it.
Yeah.
And so in a way, we can say that this intro is almost acting as if all of this is within the story that is being told on this radio broadcast.
Right. I'm going to reference something you told me not to and say that it's like Grand Budapest Hotel, which kind of takes us through a number of layers of like books.
I didn't tell you not to. I just when we were in our postmortem when we were talking about it, I was just like, well, yeah, but at that point, like we're multi-layered narratives are a thing. Like
yeah.
But honestly,
I think it's a good example because it's so deliberate about it in that movie.
That's true. That's true. I can see what you mean by that. Okay, so effectively though, the movie projector and the audio play keep coming up. Like at one point, literally, Nikki walks into a theater that is playing what she is doing on the screen in real time.
Yes.
And that's the second of 3 times that a character sees themselves being broadcast on TV.
Yeah.
The idea of these characters, their fates being ordained, the experience, the gauntlet that they're going to go through already being set because it is a story that is being told. It is a pre-recorded story that is being told. I feel like it ties into the feminist themes because the idea is that society has already decided the fate of women.
Yeah.
And the tragedy that is watching them go through the struggle and being in danger and the overall like what I would say is like the fake actualization that is expected of women, but not too actualized. Don't get too close to it. Don't figure yourself out too much because think about this. And we're looping it all around. This movie loops around itself, so we're going to talk about it out of order.
It's very stream of consciousness, and this podcast is probably going to be stream of consciousness.
When the lost girl kisses Nikki at the end, I was like, oh yes, it's like a lesbian self-actualizing herself. Like she's realizing that she likes girls. She made up this whole hot, perfect woman basically in her eyes to come and save her. But then she goes home into a heteronormative life.
Right. Yeah.
And I don't know what the intent of that was, but I definitely feel like overall this whole movie is basically saying even this critique of the patriarchy is in and of itself a self-closed loop that is reinforcing the patriarchy.
Could be.
Like David Lynch is aware, like as a man, I think he was aware that as a man he was not able to answer the questions of the problems, because he brings up a lot of problems with how society treats women in this movie, but he doesn't provide any answers.
Right.
Like basically he's like, hey girl, you just self-actualize yourself, find yourself, and then you'll be happy.
Well, I think so.
Not intentionally. I just think that that's kind of like the vibe that the ending gives me.
I think Nikki, she comes in, they kiss, and then Nikki disappears. She fades away.
Right.
So is that the lost girl finding herself? Like Nikki represents like...
That's what I feel like. I feel like the lost girl created Nikki.
Yeah.
To free herself. Because Nikki is this successful actress who lives in this big mansion and everybody loves, and she's super wealthy and has a butler and a staff and like everything that the lost girl doesn't have. Like anyone selling their body in a hotel room is not wealthy.
Right.
So if Nikki is a real character, then the purpose she serves in the narrative is to represent everything that the lost girl would aspire to from her position. And if she isn't a real character, then she is 100%, she's just a construct of that desire.
Yeah. But she's only that like perfect person at the very beginning, at her introduction. She loses that pretty quickly.
Yes. And I think that that's indicative of the fact that even our fantasies are polluted by our trauma.
Okay.
Because the things that happen to Nikki basically, like eventually Nikki goes from this super successful, rich, like successful actress to a whore turning tricks on the street. She literally says, I'm a whore, and like laughs about it. And like, and so it's like almost like the lost girl creates Nikki to represent everything she wants. But as she continues to fantasize about it, Nikki becomes her.
I think there are also strong themes of finding oneself in art and the balance between, art informing life and life informing art.
That's also valid. I mean, I should specify that what I'm talking about is just one of the closed loops
sure.
in this film.
Yeah, it's a very layered movie. I think there are a lot of like valid lenses to view it through.
Because I think that Nikki is a real girl in this. Like, she's a real person. I think that what it represents for the lost girl to be looking at the static and then watching Nikki's life is because narratively, Nikki represents that longing, and her deterioration is that what I was saying. But then her own journey through this movie is about the relationship we have with art, and also the way that we seek understanding from others with our trauma. Because he basically goes like up that huge staircase and sits down and talks to who an
extremely disinterested man.
Yes. And I think he represents God.
Okay.
So, because like she has to walk all the way up. She's like, wow, it was such a bitch getting up here. It's like flights and flights of stairs.
Yeah.
And she sits down and she goes to confessional. Like she sits down. She's like, I was told that you could help me. And then she just starts confessing to him. And I think he represents like God, or it's like some like religion, or something like that, where it's like he's sitting there, he's just listening, and the only time that he says anything other than when he goes away to talk on the phone, the only time he says anything is, "Did you really cheat on your boyfriend?" Like, because she's going off, and then she's like, "Well, you know, I came home and he attacked me because he said I cheated on him," and he was like, "Well, did you?" And she said, "Well, yeah, I did."
Yeah.
And I think
she says, like, I was screwing a couple guys for drinks, no big deal.
Yeah. And it's like, okay, so the religious aspect of this film, God is only interested in how she fucked over a man. The only time he shows any interest in what she's saying is in reference to that.
Well, I mean, within the bonds of relationship or marriage, I guess, because she fucks up some men in those stories,
and he doesn't care.
Literally, yeah. It's like, I gouged his eye out and tore his nuts off, and he was crying. And then,
because he tried to rape her.
Yeah.
But like, the idea is that like this person, that's this godly figure at the very least, way up at the top, like in heaven.
Yeah.
She's confessing her whole life, and the only time he cares is when she said that she was unfaithful. And like, you know, he does play another role. He like gets her where she needs to go to help self-actualize the lost girl.
Maybe. I mean, or he leaves the room to take a call, and she just slips out.
Right, like, but she sees him later when she's in the theater.
Oh, in the theater. Yeah.
He leads her up the stairs that eventually leads her to eventually getting to the apartment with the lost girl in it.
Gotcha.
But I think he's a negative influence on her. I think that she would have gone up there regardless, because she's noticed that the staircase was there before he was walking up it. And then she gets attacked by the antagonist of this film, allegedly, who is so minor we didn't even bring him up in the synopsis.
Yeah, I'm also a little unsure of like how many characters he's playing, kind of, because he's basically her husband in a few of these realities. Is that accurate? Is he the same guy that we see?
He's the phantom guy. He's not her husband ever. Okay. He's like the older one. Okay. And he's the one that hypnotized, like, we get this scene with her co-star's wife at the cops confessing that she was hypnotized to stab somebody with a screwdriver. And then that's what happens. And it's shown that this guy, the Phantom, was responsible for that, because he is part of like this Polish crime family that Nikki's husband is part of. Like when so it's like there's like a lot of Polish crime drama in this movie.
Yeah, they're connected.
Yes.
Okay, and from her stories with who we're going to call God, he's part of a circus troupe.
Yeah, that was weirdly weird.
And he can mesmerize people.
Yeah.
And plant ideas in their heads. Okay, so lost track of why we brought him up, but she encounters him in the hallway.
Right, exactly. So did God lead her to encounter him so that he could take her out?
So this figure that approaches her in the hallway, I kind of took to embody like all of the sexual violence that she and these other women in the story were inflicted by. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Well, yeah, because he literally hypnotizes. He takes your autonomy from you. He hypnotizes you in a violation of your body in a way, like he basically mind rapes you.
Yeah. So he's kind of the final boss in a way of this gulag of suffering that she's been through.
Gulag of suffering.
I wrote a letterbox review of this movie. I think I actually had a better grotesque gulag. There was some alliteration in it, but anyway.
She unloads a full gun into him.
Yeah.
And it doesn't do anything to him. And he is directly blocking the doorway for her to get into the apartment to go to the lost girl.
Yeah.
And he would have, okay. How do you feel about when he like warps into all those different faces?
So the first face is hers, technically.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like an expression of her pain. And then we see this like very like vague face-like shape that seems to be bleeding from the mouth.
Right. I just like haven't really been able to like in context kind of understand the purpose of that. Like him being invulnerable, I get that purpose. It kind of ties into my earlier points about the patriarchy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But
so yeah, does she like kind of project her pain into him?
Okay. Because like she is able just to walk past him and just go into the apartment. Like she unloads a full gun.
Yeah, after he like melts.
Right. And so it's like the only way to confront patriarchy is to like confront your internalized misogyny, basically. Like even as like a woman, you have internalized misogyny from society.
Right.
And from your trauma. And so she gets to Lost Girl and the Lost Girl is freed and liberated. And it's like it's the music and everything about this moment is showing that this is a good thing that's happening.
Yes.
Like, this is victorious.
Yeah. It's the catharsis that we've been building to the whole time.
And boy, does it. Yeah, it definitely feels like catharsis. I was like, oh, God, this movie is so long.
It is. In my Letterboxd review, I compared it with Fire Walk With Me, which I know you haven't seen, but you have seen Twin Peaks.
The first couple seasons.
Yeah. So, I mean, obviously, you know what happens to Laura Palmer. The movie Fire Walk With Me is, for the most part, that experience. I often call it the passion of Laura Palmer because it's just a lot of her suffering, and it's more linear than this story, but I think it's very similar structurally in that it's a crescendo of suffering building to a catharsis of her release.
Okay, that makes sense. Like it's the good ending for Twin Peaks.
Yeah, I mean, kind of.
Yeah. And there was a lot of Twin Peaks here. Like this movie easily could have taken place in the Twin Peaks universe.
Yeah. I mean, David Lynch explores these kind of themes a lot.
Mm-hmm. But this one more so. Like I legitimately felt like this was just like kind of just happening like in LA.
Mm-hmm.
The Twin Peaks universe, but it's just in Hollywood. Like it's like some of like how this like weird, this kind of like magic that's happening where like the time stuff that's happening and like the way that's like the dreaming and like how the dreaming is leading to revelation. It's kind of like, and then they even have like a Red Room reference. It just felt very like, it felt like metaphysically the universes work the same. Whereas like when you watch like Mulholland Drive, it doesn't get into that the same way that this one does, in my opinion.
It's a different feel.
It just felt very Twin Peaksy. Like,
yeah,
I don't know, not like story wise, just vibes, just the aesthetic. And like again, if like Lynch had come out before his death and been like, yeah, this movie was actually like a Twin Peaks spinoff or something, like I would have been like, oh, okay, yeah.
So let's back up a little bit because I feel like we've kind of touched on this, but not said it explicitly. While Nikki is like having her kind of mental breakdown, like questioning who she is and when and where she is, she at some point starts seeing these like maybe dozen or so sex workers from the past, ostensibly.
Well, they don't start off as sex workers. They present themselves initially as just like women that have been used by men, and then at the very end they're sex workers, because they get dirtier as the movie progresses. Like they get less, like they literally get dirtier, like on their bodies, and so does Nikki. Like as Nikki gets dirtier, she gets more and more to the street. Like she starts off in a mansion, and then by the almost end of the movie, she's literally living on the street. In the gutter. Yeah, exactly. And all the other girls follow suit.
Yeah. They seem to have more like wherewithal. They at least project a sort of knowing aura that Nikki is not allowed in on.
Yeah, like especially like they show her how to do like the divination thing that she does, where it's like you take the silk, you burn a hole into it with a cigarette,
right,
and you look inside and you see,
right, and that kind of takes us, the viewers, into Poland, right? Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Poland, the past, all over the place.
Yeah, so that section or layer of the movie really reminded me of a story of generational trauma. Like we're going back through these women who have come before Nikki, and like in search of some kind of original sin kind of a thing.
Oh, I see. Okay. Yeah, because like other people seem to be able to utilize the time fuckery that happens. Like Nikki isn't the only one who seems to be doing that, where it's like experiencing her life out of order and like seeing the past, seeing the future.
Yeah.
And she's like, they're like the girls take her outside and they're like, this is where it happened.
Yeah.
And then later on we revisit that same place multiple times, and it's all about like the like it's all building up to these two murders of these two women that happened in the past, because we see the two girls that get killed in the past. And like then it's like building up to like the idea that Nikki is going to get killed. Like she's next. She's the next woman in a long line of women to get murdered by a man because she fell in love with another man. Which, by the way, we like completely forget about her co-star like halfway through this movie. We don't see him again. But the point is that when we keep flashing back to the past, and I think we get one in detail and we see a second, or it might be the same woman twice. I don't know, but the point is that like this plot, this ancient Polish folktale, which is just a guy getting cheated on and killing his wife. It's not really a folktale. It's
right. Yeah.
It's like legitimately just like a thing that men do because they can't handle the idea that a woman doesn't want them anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Like, look, yeah, cheating is bad, but come on.
I think you said it right at the beginning that it's very important that there are two versions of the folktale that the old woman says, because there are
the two sides of the paradigm of the patriarchy.
Yeah.
Like men, the evil of men comes from them playing. Like they go out to play. The evil just seems to just have been there, you know?
Yeah.
But like, but for girls, it's the girls' fault because they didn't do what they were told. They didn't stay in the marketplace. And it's important. It's a marketplace.
Yeah. Let's talk about that.
Like
the sexual marketplace.
The sexual marketplace, right. Because Nikki is successful because of her looks and an industry that requires her to look pretty.
Yeah.
Same with all the sex workers. Like Lynch seems to like draw a comparison between sex work and being in Hollywood. Like selling your body in different ways. There's a theme of selling your body in this movie that permeates like different ways of selling your body. And all the women in this movie talk about like how they have been used by men in various circumstances. And like the girls in the sex worker girls, that characters that were brought up before, they are like, oh, well, you know, we had some good times. Did he do that thing you liked? You know, all that stuff.
Yeah.
And, you know, that's that internalized misogyny of like,
yeah. And You said this during that scene, and Kitty also said this when we watched it the first time. I was like, yeah, this is how women talk. This is like, oh, show me your boobs. Your boobs are so great.
Yeah. Oh my God.
Like, what do you think about that? Is it David Lynch like being naive or
no?
Like,
it's very intentional. He knows how to write women. The thing is, like, when she's first exposed to this spirit world that she goes into where all these other girls are, and where she sees the past, and she sees this past murder that happened and all this stuff. The other girls talk like that, but it's her internalized misogyny. It's the stilted dialogue is representing women who are not liberated. And when Nikki is Sue is a liberated person, so she talks normally. Like when she goes on her monologue with her confessional monologue that she has, that she's not stilted. She's talking like a person. And so Lynch in this movie uses that, what we consider to be bad performance, bad acting. He uses that deliberately to reflect moments when characters are not being authentic, or they're not liberated, or they're still imprisoned by it. And the more self-actualized that Nikki becomes, the more she talks like Sue. And then she's called Nikki, but she's still talking like Sue. She's still talking with the accent. She's still talking because Sue has a Southern accent.
Yes.
And she's still talking with that accent, and she doesn't drop it at all for the rest of the movie, basically, until we loop back to the meeting with the Polish lady. But the point is that, like, the more free and control over this that Nikki gets, the more she talks freely, and unstilted. And so I don't think it's misogyny on Lynch's part. I think it's deliberate, and it's meant to just kind of show, like, this is how society expects women to behave. And the further we get into the movie, we realize why that's a bad thing.
But they also, one thing that I know about women is that they break out into dance numbers of the locomotion and then vanish.
Honestly, that's a very haunting scene, honestly. Because, like... Because, like, it's funny. It happens randomly, and it's like that. But it's like the idea is, like, these girls are like, let's just do what girls do. Let's go dancing. And then they just start dancing. And then they all disappear.
Yeah.
Because it's hollow. It's supposed to be hollow. It's hollow. It's like, this is not how women are. And this is how society continues to expect them to be. And yet they're people. Nikki is a person. She's got feelings. She's scared. She's overwhelmed. She's wondering what the hell is going on. But then when we get to the scene where she gets stabbed, she's embraced it. She's starting to control it. So
there's a specific moment. We have a long scene of her on the streets with these girls who are now definitely sex workers.
Yes.
They all are.
And she's freaking out at the start. Like, she's literally, like, having a crisis.
Yes. And the other girls are making fun of her, and there's a doppelganger of her across the street, and there's also...
Well, it's her, like, time... It's like her future self. Like, she... Because we see the scene, she's watching it from the street, and then she goes around, goes up, talks to God, comes back down around, and then now is where she was when she was watching herself originally.
See, I didn't even catch that. Okay.
Yeah.
So that's like a time loop thing.
Yeah, it's like a time loop thing. So she sees herself, and that her seeing herself and then seeing the person coming to stab her catalyzes her to go talk to God. And then when she realizes he's not going to help her, that's when she leaves and comes back around and then runs into all of those girls.
Okay. Huh. So yeah, there's a lot of her running away, a lot of her panicking, and then I guess finding God.
And realizing that he's worthless.
Yeah. And she comes back out. She's still afraid. And then there's a moment where she turns on a dime, and what is her line? She's like, hey, check this out, or like
yeah, something like that.
Something to that
because
effect.
earlier in the movie, she's like sitting against the wall, frozen, petrified, watching the girls do that, and they're like, hey, check this out, and they just start snapping at each other.
Yeah.
And then she now starts doing it, and they start she commands them basically. Like, so before she's like a prisoner watching all of this stuff unfold, and now she's controlling it. And then she gets stabbed.
Yeah.
But she's embraced. She stopped trying to fight it. She's embraced the fate.
Yeah.
And let it play out.
Gets stabbed with a screwdriver
In the middle of the gut, which, damn.
Yeah, shit.
That looked really painful. She screams, and it's like, yeah, that's really painful.
Yeah. Brief tangent. We've seen this woman before.
She's Ben's wife.
Right. She's Ben's wife, but we also saw her confession where she said, I'm going to stab somebody with a screwdriver. And she takes off her bandages and reveals that she stabbed herself. Do we think that is like, if you perpetuate patriarchy by like focusing your violence towards other women, you're hurting yourself?
Yeah, it's like it's crabs in a bucket. Like, ideally, if two people are no longer happy together and one of them wants to leave the relationship, in a perfect world, they just do that.
Right.
But we're trained to tie so much of ourselves up into these heteronormative norms.
Mm-hmm.
And so the idea that her husband really likes Nikki is something inescapable for her. And yeah, she's hypnotized by the Phantom, but the Phantom represents patriarchy, is what we talked about earlier.
Right.
So like patriarchy is what motivated her to hurt Nikki, and that is a self-injury, because the more we bring each other down as women, the more the patriarchy continues to control us.
Right. Okay, so she gets stabbed. Nikki gets stabbed.
Yes.
And she crawls over to just between these homeless people.
Yeah, these two homeless people.
Technically three, I guess.
These three homeless people.
Yeah. One of them is Terry Crews, which is a little disorienting.
It is. But, when this movie came out, it wouldn't have been as disorienting.
Yeah. It was lesser known at the time.
He wasn't as much of a meme. He hadn't done the Old Spice commercials yet.
Right, exactly. Right. So she's in between this woman who's just like in a half of a cardboard box with a pillow, and Terry Crews, who has his arm around his Asian girlfriend.
Yep, totally nothing weird going on here. Just Terry Crews sitting with his mail in order wife and a crackhead.
Right. Right.
Wow.
Slice of life, salt of the earth, etc.
This is what you see down the LA street these days.
And this starts what I imagine is, for a lot of people, one of the harder to digest or more confusing sections, because these people just start talking and it has nothing to do with the rest of the movie, seemingly.
But it does.
Right. But in that moment, like originally watching that scene, I was like, okay, we're just like, she fell into a different movie here.
Yeah. It's like she just fell into a different movie. She walked into the wrong set.
Yeah. And like some of what they say kind of comes around to like the Asian girl talks about her cousin or whatever.
Her friend, Nika.
Yeah. Who has a blonde wig, and we see her during the credits.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty sure that's the only time she appears.
Right. But like what that monologue is kind of about is the theming of the movie, which is that like Nika has a monkey. She just lets it run around her house. She doesn't do anything about it.
It shits everywhere,
but
she doesn't
screams. And she has a hole in her vagina from all the sex that she's had, because she's selling her body to do hard drugs. And it's like it's just a microcosm of the whole movie's theming, which is that like the way that society treats women is that they're only useful as long as their bodies are, and that like the girl even says like my friend is she knows her life is over now because she's got a hole in her vagina and she can't fix it. It's too expensive. So she's going to go out and get one more score so that she can, be at peace or whatever.
Okay.
That's what she says. She's going to go out and do one more thing, and she's going to, get drugs one more time just to have fun. And she's so pretty in her blonde wig. Like, talks about how pretty she is.
Yeah. So we get all of this dialogue, and then the black woman who's in the box offers Nikki a light. She lights her lighter and allows Nikki to look into the light and pass on. And then the camera pulls back and we see another camera pointed at them. And then eventually Jeremy Irons says, cut, print, and we're back on the movie set for the first time in an hour.
Yeah, or maybe we've been on the movie set longer than that.
Right. I mean, yeah, it's ambiguous, but
honestly, when they pulled back and it was just the camera there, I expected the movie to be done.
Mm-hmm.
I expected that. I expected it to be roll credits, because if the movie had ended there, that would have been the peak Lynch. Just leave you just thinking.
Just an impression of this ambiguity. Yeah, but we get kind of a significant amount after that.
Yes, we do.
Because Nikki gets up from that changed. She has, just to recap, been stabbed in a moment where she has taken control. And do we think that she has kind of manifested that to just be part of this movie?
Yes, I think so.
Okay.
I think that within the metaphysical rules of this setting,
mm-hmm.
that Nikki was going to die for real. And then when she realizes she has control, she then changes her fate. So she does die because her fate was to die. But the fate said nothing about it being a real death.
Right.
She died in the movie. And then she gets back up, and then that's when she goes and frees the Lost Girl. So it's almost like multiple realities simultaneously existing. So the one that the Lost Girl exists in is not the one that Nikki exists in.
Mm-hmm.
But Nikki is able to then utilize this power that she's found within herself to then cross the dimensional barrier to the other side of the TV and then free the Lost Girl.
Yeah.
And then loop all the way back around to the start. Because I think when we first see Nikki turning around, because the old lady at the beginning is look over there, and she turns, it looks like fear. And then when she does it the second time, it's a different emotion.
Yeah.
And she sees herself just at peace, a very serene picture of herself the second time around.
Yeah.
So it's almost like she's figured it out. She's learned how to be at peace with herself.
Yeah. From Nikki's perspective, following her as a main character, this is a story of her finding her power.
Exactly. Literally in the context of the mythology of the movie.
Yeah.
But also just metaphorically, it's legitimately just girl power.
Yeah.
Despite the patriarchy, despite all of these chains that keep you bogged down, all of these systems that seem to be designed to imprison you, you have control over your own actualization. That's what the snapping is.
Yeah.
All those sex workers represent the legacy of women and how society has treated them.
Yeah.
And when she seizes control of that, she's not removing the trauma from herself. She's not removing the internalized misogyny. She's just learning how to rise above it. And she helps another girl. And by helping another girl, whereas Ben's wife, whose character name I don't even remember, I think that gets said once in the entire film.
Maybe.
She becomes a slave to the patriarchy by stabbing Nikki. Nikki becomes a liberator from it by freeing the Lost Girl.
Yeah. Yeah, throughout the movie, just to kind of further tie these women together, there's a repeated dialogue of look at me and tell me if you've known me before. And there's this sense of their stories repeating, their traumas you can see in one another.
And when we get the flashback to like the 30s or 40s, it's the Lost Girls actress playing the girl asking, "Do you know me?"
Yeah.
And she says it in Polish. So it's like, I don't know what the source of this Polish influence was, but it really works, because it's like the idea is like, this stuff was happening over there, and it followed the women to America because it's the same shit here that happens there.
There's a universality to these struggles.
Yes.
That has the potential to unite them. And I think maybe that's what Nikki finds at the end.
Right, because she's like just like staring off into space out the front of a TV, basically, like at the end, before it flashes back to her in her mansion with the old lady.
I don't remember exactly the shot that you're...
So she's like on the set. So she's on the Rabbit set. Like, because she goes into the apartment, frees the Lost Girl, and then the Lost Girl runs and like goes to her husband. And then Nikki is on the set of the Rabbits that we kept seeing. And she's looking out at it like it's a stage. And then we get like a very surreal, expressionist lights out in the darkness. And then that's when it snaps back to her talking with the old lady.
Okay.
After like that, like there's like a whole song monologue, and then there's the lights, and then it's...
Right. There's a lot in this movie.
Oh my God, yes. I'm exhausted, like just remembering.
Yeah.
It's definitely a journey.
So that does bring us to a convenient place to talk about what is probably my favorite part, which is the credit sequence, which is we start in this new... Is it the same mansion, or
it's like it's
similar
it's
mansion?
the same mansion. Like, we don't see enough of the mansion to know if it's a different one, but I'm just assuming it's her house.
Okay. So yeah, Nikki's come full circle. We see her on the chaise lounge or whatever, and then fade to black, come back to this monkey, and immediately we're like,
Nika.
oh, we're at Nika's house.
Or she's just over for tea or something.
Right. And then we get this music sequence that is jazzy and upbeat, and it's such an immaculate tonic for the suffering that you've endured for 3 hours, to have this sequence that is so full of life, and Nikki's there, like all the girls are there.
Yeah, basically.
And they're dancing, and there's a sense of them being in control.
Yeah, like it's like there's a couple of guys there as well, but it's mostly just all of the women in the cast.
Yeah, one of the guys is sawing logs, literally sawing logs.
Which, yeah, I don't know. More is
not gonna, I don't have anything for that.
Yeah, I don't even know.
Do with that what you will.
Lynch just probably was like, that'll be really funny. Like,
oh, it was a reference to the sawmill in Twin Peaks. Of course.
I mean, there is a lot of Twin Peaks references in this. I'm sure, like, if I watch the movie and also like all that stuff, I would have caught more too. But I could tell that like he definitely was putting a lot of references, at least. Like,
yeah.
Not like story references, but just like details.
Yeah. Like the red curtains that were very evocative of the Red Room at the end of Twin Peaks. If I were going to try to link it to Twin Peaks, the dead live on in wood in Twin Peaks.
Yes.
So maybe there's something with that, and like severing of history, or
okay, I can see that. We're kind of stretching, but
yeah,
that's okay. Honestly, the ending, oh my God, the ending was so good. Honestly, it almost felt like a play. You know, like a lot of times when big productions of theater put on like tragedies or dramas, the cast will come out and do like a silly dance or so at the end, like to just like let the audience like be like, okay,
to breathe.
Like, yeah, just like a quick like, hey, you know, everyone's fine, we're all good, like this was all pretend.
yeah
Because this movie really, really, really draws you into itself.
And the structure is very much part of that. The confusion, the stream of consciousness nature of it. It's all very confounding and disorienting, which I think ties back in with its themes of patriarchy and all of these societal roles that can be confounding and disorienting
and different depending on who's setting them.
Right.
Look, there's lots of male allies for the feminism. Like it's not like all men suck or whatever.
Right.
But there's a lot of men who at the very least are ignorant of the role that patriarchy has played in their own uplifting, and at worst are complicit collaborators with it, and they all have different ideas of what that patriarchy means. Like a lot of, like, for example,
and they're allowed to bend and change the rules in some cases.
Exactly, because it's just fascism, but for men over women instead of this group over another group. Like the heart of a fascist is the same regardless of what they're being fascist about, and the rules are arbitrary because unless the rules service the fascism, they're going to discard them.
Right. All right, Ari, what's one thing that you liked and disliked about this movie?
Okay. I really liked when she seizes control, when Nikki learns how to harness the magic of this world she finds herself in, when she when her panic goes away and she just embraces it, and she just starts doing the snapping, and then like that whole scene is my favorite part of the movie because I feel it so strongly. Like
you feel the magic of the moment.
Where because like she realizes she's panicking, and then it clicks in her head. She's like, oh wait, this is bullshit. Why am I panicking? Like, it's gonna be fine. Like the embrace and the synchronicity of the moment is something that I, as in my own like personal like spiritual beliefs, try to embody. Just going with the flow. Not to say like you don't stand for anything, but just like once you have initialized the momentum of whatever you're doing, you just go with it until something stops you. It's just a good way to live, because why do you waste all this needless energy on panic and stress? Like, look, stress about the choices you're going to make, but once you have made a choice, just let it ride out, because it might be scary. You can cuss the whole time if you have to, but the person coming to stab you usually is just a figmentation of your mind, and it's not like there are real threats in the world, but we make more threats out of the constructs of our nightmares than we actually have threats.
That's a theme that I feel like if it hasn't come up in this podcast already, it will. People making a lot of their own suffering and demons.
And that's where I'm at as like a person. Like I have all of this trauma, like some fucked stuff has happened to me in my life.
Right.
And I can choose to just embrace the synchronicity of how things are playing out, or I can sit all day and lose my mind over the trauma that I have. So I really feel, I really saw myself in Nikki in that scene.
Yeah.
And then the least favorite thing I have is just length. I think that there's a lot of fat that could have been trimmed off of this movie, and the story could have been told more effectively. But it's Lynch, so like this is like it being my least favorite thing isn't like I hate it. Like it's just like I just feel like always with Lynch he could deal with a little bit more editing. That's just how I feel about Lynch. It's like because like that's why Twin Peaks works so well. It's like everybody loves Twin Peaks because it's a show. So he had to edit himself.
He was working within constraints. Yeah. I did have someone tell me that they loved Twin Peaks, and I was like, "Oh, have you seen The Return or any of the movies?" And she was like, "I have discovered I like Twin Peaks when he's constrained by like
the time,
daytime television standards."
Like I feel like Lynch is at his best when he is constrained by time. So Dune is not a good Lynch movie. Like, I love Dune. Don't get me wrong. I love the Lynch Dune movie. I grew up with it. It's nostalgic for me. But that constraint was a like studio budget constraint. Like, he had all this money he had to spend, and he had to do all these things. That hurt him, like, it creatively. Whereas when he has a time constraint, that's when he's at his best. Because then he's forced to cut a lot of this superfluous stuff out that I don't feel serves the plot as much as maybe he wants it to.
Okay.
Which is why, thus, Twin Peaks is, I would say, his best work overall, just because, and what most people know him for. Yeah. Except for, I mean, a lot of people know him for the Dune movie, but they know it is a bad movie. Twin Peaks literally is critically acclaimed. Yeah. So, what about you? What's one thing that you liked and one thing you didn't like?
I'm going to go with Laura Dern's monologues with God. With God. Mm-hmm. Yeah. There are a lot of really, I mean, this is a fucking master class in acting from Laura Dern, the whole movie. But those were especially entertaining to see what she did with those monologues that are gruesome, and like you see a lot of the story on her face and the details that she brings into it or leaves out, and when like it's a good time.
I agree. That's definitely the other thing I was considering. Like, honestly, I think I said it while we were watching, like, half of this movie is just people walking around and then saying really cold lines to each other and then walking away. Like,
yeah, one of them that you mentioned was the Nikki's husband in her like original mansion version threatening her co-star.
Yeah, and he still hits that, so that pussy must be good.
Yeah.
But like he says some like cold ass shit. Like, I can't even remember, but like it's
something about the need to instigate his own suffering.
Oh, like, yeah. I was like, oh shit. And that like does tie into the theme of like, you know, we make a lot of our own suffering. Like Nikki made this way harder on her. Like, this weird supernatural shit that's happening to her, she made it harder on herself by panicking. Because once she starts to embrace it, it starts to like click for her. What's your least favorite thing?
That's tough, because it's probably something that we completely forgot to talk about.
That's how
and
Lynch
it's just like buried in there somewhere. I will say I'm conflicted about the jump scares in the movie, which, what did you compare it to? Like a YouTube? Like,
oh yeah. yeah. Well, like, cause like when the Phantom's face is doing all that weird stuff, I'm like, the effects are not very good, audience.
David like, Lynch has a way of using effects that are like ostensibly bad, but using them in an interesting way.
It just, in this context, it really comes off like an early 2010,
like trying to be edgy.
Yeah, it doesn't, like, when I was like, when she walks around and she's like in a hallway, I'm like, it's like ooh, a hallway. Like, I remember I said that at one point. Yeah. Tristan thought I hated this movie when we were watching it, and I'm like, no.
Sarcastic.
I'm just
barbs.
I'm a sarcastic bitch. Like, I don't know what to tell you.
I will say that the hallways worked on me every time. The first time I viewed it, like when I didn't know, just like filming a dark hallway has a power to it.
It was really effective earlier in the movie, like when Nikki's husband catches her cheating with her co-star. That works really. That scene works really well. Yeah. Lynch uses flashlights very effectively as like effects.
Yeah.
Like, or when Nikki's like running up to the camera and then she like, with that horror face that she has, and then like, the flashlight's following her while she's doing it. Like, that's very effective. It's just at the end, I don't know what it is, but it just, I just couldn't take the end hallway stuff seriously. The lighting was different. I think if Lynch had kept with the flashlight effect that he was doing, I think it would have been better, but like it's just like the hallway's too lit. It's not scary.
Huh? Maybe. I don't know. It was definitely unsettling. Maybe that's all it needed to be.
I'm also just like ruined by horror movies. Like I've watched way too many.
That's fair.
So
the hallway, I'm compelled to make the comparison to Blue Velvet. There's a similar.
Now that you're pointing it out, I think I'm remembering. We're gonna have to watch. Is that on our list? That needs to be on our list.
Okay.
Other Lynch films should be on our list.
Yeah.
Point is,
that's my, I guess, pick for maybe didn't like.
This one's hard because it's a good movie. Well, lovely listeners, thank you for joining me once again in my living room. I hope that you found this podcast interesting and insightful.
I did.
Yeah.
So I hope someone else did.
Bye.
We release you back to the void.
Yes, return back to the liminal space between time and space.
This has been Emissaries from the Void with Ari Stell Hawthorne and myself, Tristan Bowersox. New episodes will be released every other week with short bonus content we're calling liminals in the off weeks. The intro music is Now I Hear Little Dreams by Captive Portal, and the outro music is Arcadia by White Bat Audio. You can find us on Blue Sky at Void Emissaries, and remember that's single M double S. You can find Ari as Obscurity on most platforms and me on Blue Sky and Letterboxd as TB McQueen. The latter is where you will find our watch list and suggest movies you'd like to hear us dissect. You can also email us at emissariesfromthevoid@outlook.com to give feedback, alternate takes on the movies we've discussed, questions, suggestions, etc. Emissaries from the Void is a Void Opal podcast produced by TB McQueen Creative. For something completely different, listen to my other podcast, Fan Fiction Theater.